Popcorn Junkies, hello. Sorry we are late with this film, but this is Marriage Story, which is the Netflix film directed by Noah Baumbach, starring Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver. And it's being talked about in the same breath as The Irishman this year for being Netflix's major assault on the Oscars. Not only was The Irishman a long film from Netflix, this also was a long film from Netflix, coming in at a 2 hours and a quarter almost. So as I say, it stars Scarlett Johansson, stars Adam Driver, and it's been touted as the film that we need to keep a close eye on at the Oscars for the lead actors' performances, but also being described in the same breath as Kramer versus Kramer for heart-wrenching divorce, distress, family breakdown, family breakup, from the perspective of husband, wife, father, and mother and son caught in the middle. And it's partly inspired by Noah Baumbach's own experiences of divorce, as well as his own experiences of being the child of divorced parents. So he's got the qualifications. It's bang in there. We all have had some experience of this, so it's going to resonate for everyone. And we went to this, didn't we, with the girls? Excited isn't the right word. How would you describe how we were trotting along? We were going to it.
I was quite excited.
Yeah, excited to be sort of moved.
See, I love, whether it's film or theatre or anything, discussing relationships, because I find them just so fascinating. And we do all hold in our hearts, don't we, the Kramer versus Kramer and the Champ. And
I don't remember the Champ at all.
The Champ. I must watch it with the girls, and so I was thinking this is going to be the girls sort of Champ and Kramer versus Kramer. I love the actors in it, so.
And I was keen to see Scarlett. I always feel that Scarlett has got, she's capable of far more sophisticated roles than the ones that Marvel often give her as Black Widow. She's been, I think, typecast as a superhero actor. And similarly, I think Adam Driver, though he's done a lot of other indie stuff, he's trying to sort of shake just being seen as Kylo Ren in the Star Wars film. So it was a good opportunity to see two great but popular actors really get mucky emotionally. And I'd heard on the grapevine that they did get mucky emotionally. That's what I was excited about, seeing some sort of really searingly honest and difficult.
Oh, you mean in real life they did?
Yeah, no, for this part. I've read reports of the director saying they dug deep into places and recesses. I think Scarlett she has a child, doesn't she, from a guy she's split up with. So, this was, close to home for them both in very different ways.
What an opening.
What an opening.
Oh my God, I loved it.
Which was almost a complete lift, or the trailer was a complete lift of the opening of the film.
Which got us really excited about the film.
Yeah.
In fact, I said you could almost make it a short film.
Yes.
You could have you could make it into a short film.
Well, it was a short film.
The point when she then walks out of the mediation, that would have been fantastic.
Well, and it was obviously it was a longer version than what you got in the trailer, which was them describing the greatest attributes of each other in a letter that they'd written to each other.
Which was it was really good, because it just put you in the place of heartbreak immediately, because of course you know that this is going to be a couple that are breaking up, and they're talking about all the things that they loved about each other. And I thought it was beautifully done. It was beautifully narrated by each of them. And it was really clever, because you kind of fell in love with each one of them.
Yes.
A bit like you did with A Star Is Born at the beginning. You fell in love with the characters in the way that they'd fallen in love with each other. And I really love that when a director and writer manages to do that.
Yeah.
So it got off to a brilliant start, and I could see the girls, our girls who are 12 and 16 really settling down.
Yes.
They were really right, this is going to be good,
and I thought
juicy and meaty.
And the mediator in that scene was
fantastic.
Fabulous cameo part. I don't know who the actor is, but he was so strong. And I thought, wow, in that first 5 minutes, I thought, this is what we're after. It set the bar so high. And
it's the sort of thing I want to see in the theatre as well. When I go, I want that sort of. It really pulled at my heartstrings. That opening scene. It was perfect.
Yeah.
I would say it was a perfect opening to a film about a relationship.
Absolutely. And then it proceeded to kind of go back in time, obviously, as we charted the way in which their relationship shifted. And it did the classic thing of focusing, and I thought it focused more than I was expecting it to, on the importance or lack of importance to each other of work and what they were doing. It made me think a lot about how couples, make sacrifices or assumptions about sacrifices, and how I thought where it was quite strong at times was the way it showed how language, you made the point, I think, after we came out, how, you know, what was an agreement to one person was just a suggestion to another. Yeah, and I thought that was really intriguing, and it made me think a lot about us in terms of, oh, okay, that's why, you know, things are different, things have different importances, don't they?
Because as the days have gone on since we saw it, I have thought about it more than I thought I would think about it.
Okay.
I found some moments of it uncomfortable being in a long-term relationship, and I think a lot of people will.
Yeah.
Those moments where you go, is that what I do? Shit, is that? I think it was good. It did hold a mirror up, because we've got this story going back and forth the whole time that she believed that she had said, made it clear many times that she wanted to go back to LA.
Yeah.
And that he had just dismissed her feelings, and it was all about him and about his career.
Yes.
And then he was, of course, he just came from the complete, and I thought it illustrated that really, really well, the way both can think that they're the injured party.
Yeah.
And it just made me think about where do I do that within our relationship? Where do you do that within our relationship? How much do we dismiss actually the dreams and hopes of the other because we're just getting on with the job of being together and being married and looking after the kids and, you know, living day by day and getting the bills paid and
we often dismiss, I think, in relationships what can be just seen as an indulgence or frippery within the other. I mean, you know, whether it be trekking or heading off to places, and you know, these, you know, for certain parts of a relationship, these are cornerstones of survival that can become just seen as an indulgence or a kind of, oh, it's just a project or it's just a plan or it's just a pipe dream. And actually it's very close to, however pipe dreamy something is in a relationship, it might be something that for that person is absolutely important for them, and so it deserves some.
That's why I wonder whether it would have been better for them not for her to be a, you know, beautiful actress with a chance to just flip back to LA. Yeah. Whether it would have been better to have a more ordinary situation.
I wondered that too.
Because I think that would have made it more relatable for people. And I wondered, having thought about it over the last few days, if that's where it went wrong for me, because it was just a bit too unbelievable and a bit too first world.
I get you. And I also thought what I was going to get when I watched the trailer was I thought he was going to be a once successful director who was maybe struggling now and wasn't. There was just it was a given that they were both good and accomplished at what they were doing, so there was no real struggle there. I found that almost at the backdrop a bit as you say, unrelatable. It was like, well, he's a kind of avant-garde theatre. No one's going to make much money doing that sort of theatre, whatever we think. And that she would have sacrificed things that early if she had that much promise in a film for this didn't ring true. If he'd have been maybe a sort of more, so there was. I know what you mean. There was something that was kind of wrong with that.
There was a flaw in the theme.
Yeah. Now, so all of this was good, and I found myself paddling quite happily for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then a slow sort of dawning realization.
I was all right for an hour.
Were you? I was all right for 40 minutes, and I'll tell you why I was only all right for 40 minutes.
What happened at 40 minutes?
Well, I think we had the first pinch point around them both having a moment of intensity around the child, and we were in the situation where it was beginning to fall apart, and I just didn't, and this is really weird, I don't know whether it was because of script or performance. I haven't gone through what I've gone through in my life. My mum texted me today saying, you must have been in bits, and looking at this on paper, I should have been in bits. But I wasn't in bits. I had one moment where I was upset, and that was where Adam Driver was very, very, very sort of at a state of high dudgeon in his frustrations with trying to see his son. But the rest of it, I found myself strangely unengaged emotionally, and I couldn't for a long. I spent most of my time trying to work out why am I not engaged as much as I want to be.
Very strange, because we'd come prepared to have tissues.
Yes,
the girls, our daughters. Really, this was their very first complaint about it was that it felt affected, that the acting felt pushed, it felt like acting rather than truth, that Scarlett Johansson's performance was almost awkward, that they'd gone for this naturalistic
vibe.
Yeah, but it had just come across like you've gone for the naturalistic vibe.
Right, there was a big sign above her.
Yeah, which I really feel for her because, and I hope she doesn't hear this. Of course, there'd be no chance. Scarlett Johansson, because I think she was playing a real truth.
Yes.
But something was mismanaged with the direction.
No, I think it was the direction,
or with the edit, or with the DOP. There was something that fucked up what she was doing, but I couldn't work out what it was.
I think I've got one scene which for me kind of almost goes to the heart of what
With
the
Laura
problem
Dern.
was. Yes. So she sat on the sofa. She was opening up intensely to her. Laura Dern was doing her sort of... I thought Laura Dern is fantastic.
Her thing, which has become a bit of a turn.
It has become a turn.
And it's very... I imagine it's very difficult to work opposite that turn.
True. And it's always intoxicating watching Laura Dern on screen, to the detriment of everything and everyone else on
She
screen.
could upstage herself.
She does upstage herself. But here's the thing, there was something very odd that happened in that scene, and I wonder whether if you were to watch the film again, which we can't because we don't have another 2.25 hours, if you were to watch it again, she suddenly stepped up and she was directed out of the room into the bathroom where you
Because
then couldn't see her.
that is how people talk when they know each other very
Precisely.
well. But not when you're in a lawyer's room. Two girlfriends. It was almost like...
Yes.
She was, and the next thing she was going to do was go and sit on the toilet and pull her pants
I
down
thought she was
and
going to
have
go
a
for a
wee.
wee. I thought she was going to. I think
Which
this
that
is utterly
incredible
inappropriate.
familiarity. So you had her feeling quite awkward on the sea. It was like, I would love to know what they were trying to get across to us with that, because whatever it was, it didn't work.
I'm going to give you my absolute assessment of where I think this film went wrong, and it's a totally boring, pragmatic filmmaking point, which I haven't shared with anyone yet. I noticed from the way in which most scenes were covered and shot, I even noticed from the eye lines for the way most scenes were shot and covered with Adam Driver and Scarlett in them, there were countless scenes where they could have, and I'm not saying they did, but by my judgment of it was, neither of the other actors were there for the reverses, and neither of them were there for the shots on doorways.
No.
Yeah, and if you think about their schedules, which are so impossibly difficult, it felt to me that what this film...
Now you say that's what it felt
Yeah,
like.
and what this film... So what they did have time to do was, we've got time to get you both in this room and shoot the scene where you're talking, where I thought there was one very strong, protracted argument between the two of them, which was very powerful. But the lack of all those other intermediate sort of scenes of them actually meeting and talking and being able to carry it across the film, I think that injected a distance between the two of them and a slight sort of absence that didn't work in their favour. So I saw so many scenes where I felt they weren't actually opposite each other at all, and they were having to call upon that emotion in a film where it's really about the immersion of the two characters together, isn't it? And I just thought that was a practical thing, which I'd be curious to know if anyone else agrees, but it just felt at times, I thought, you're not there together. And that happens a lot, but for me, I felt like scenes were being structured so that they weren't in the same shot together. So that's one detail. What did you think of the boy? What did you think of the son? I didn't feel we got enough of the son. Because the thing about Kramer versus Kramer for me was you got a sense
I think it was bizarre that we never once saw him cry.
The child. That's true. That is true. Very odd.
We never once saw him plead.
No, or ask questions as to what was going on, which children do.
Maybe it was quite autobiographical, and this director was just sort of, I don't know. I wanted more emotion.
Yeah.
I didn't feel sorry for the little boy, and I feel sorry for almost everyone.
Well,
so there's got to be something wrong there.
And Maddie and Kiki were actually irritated
Beyond belief, not by the actor,
No.
but by the character.
So if you're not relating to the character of the child, it's
And I'm
very
sure
hard
there's
to get...
plenty of children that do behave like that within a divorce, but this is a place of entertainment, and so you do want to be prodded to feel things, and I think it was just being played too true to life.
Who did you identify with more?
It needed to be dramatised more.
Yeah, I agree. I think it needed to be punched out a bit more. Who did you identify with more? I mean, I couldn't work out whether I identified with Adam Driver more simply because I was the male and his journey was very similar
I
to mine.
identified more with Adam Driver
Yeah,
because
you
she
did,
was just coming across as really selfish and mean
Yes.
and manipulative, and we didn't really want her to be. As
No,
the
I wanted
audience,
to be more challenged by...
we didn't
yeah.
want her to be. We wanted. I think it was just very depressing.
Yeah.
It was kind of miserable people behaving in a miserable way.
Well, I thought it was slightly a bit po-faced and a bit...
Indulgent.
It was a bit indulgent, but it was strangely I can't get over the fact that my biggest disappointment of this film was that it was dislocated and everything...
Distance from itself.
Everything was emotionally muted and distanced. I didn't feel any intensity or depth even. I mean, Adam Driver...
God, I'm going to be fascinated by the comments, because I'm sure some people will think this was incredibly intense.
No.
But maybe we are two Scorpios.
Yeah.
And we have a very intense, like when we argue, we really, really argue. When we tear each other, because when he properly turns on her in that big argument, I started to feel some reality there.
And I was joyful to see Adam Driver take us to that place, because I've never seen him lose his cool.
We just needed a bit more. I'm not saying about nastiness, but we just needed a bit more in
rawness.
Because otherwise, why not just do a documentary? Because I get it. I felt like the director was trying to show us the mundaneness of it, and the exhaustion of it, and the irritation of it. But really, all that did for the audience was leave them exhausted and irritated.
I absolutely agree. I also actually think this suffered from the same problem as The Irishman by Scorsese, which is another Netflix film. And I do think there is a danger with this streaming service that's now sort of emancipating great filmmakers. And Noah Baumbach is a major New York indie filmmaker, Scorsese likewise. And what they're saying to them is, here's the money, go away and make it as long as you want with that. And I think in a weird way, this suffered from the same thing that The Irishman suffered from for me. God, I mean, I'm seriously a one-man voice saying this about Marriage Story and The Irishman, two of the biggest Oscar contenders. I think Netflix have overindulged their directors, and just because they're great directors doesn't mean they can't be overindulged and trot out. It just didn't feel tight. It didn't feel focused. And you can be focused and still meandering and still let stuff breathe and still let stuff drift, but you can still be focused in that. And I just felt it lacked focus. It lacked a rawness and an open woundedness. There was no open wound in this at all. It all seemed so civilized. It all seemed so sort of buttoned up. They all seemed so polite, a lot apart from that one scene. And the politeness was driving me nuts, because I was like, fucking break free of this, because that's the reality of this. The child wasn't... Scarlett did a bit, but it only served to characterize her as just dismissible, because she seemed unreasonable, which seemed a bit kind of gender obvious. And he just seemed, at one point, very emotional. What I would say, though, some brilliantly indulgent performances by, as we've said, Laura Dern. Ray Liotta.
He was my favourite.
Ray Liotta was my favourite. I mean, looking bizarre, but
Alda.
He plays this horrendous, and Alan Alda, another absolute classic. I thought they were two, again, just effortlessly what they were in it, but delivering their...
So good.
So good, classy. And that wonderful scene that I know you loved so much, where Scarlett Johansson was getting nervous about serving the divorce papers, and her sister kept coming in.
My favourite scene of the whole film.
It wasn't it?
Was the mum, the sister, and her.
And the
Definitely.
mum.
I loved that scene.
Wasn't it wonderful?
And I loved the way he came in and helped himself around the kitchen.
Yes.
That was... I mean, don't get me wrong.
There are moments
There
in
are some really, really good moments in this film, but not enough for 2 hours, 15 minutes.
No, I agree. Okay, well, let's sum up and score it.
Well, that's my sum up of it, really. Just too long. It needed like 40 minutes taken out of it. It needed to be dramatized more. We needed the emotion needed to be intensified.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, and now when I'm thinking about it, that they were doing the reverses with somebody else, don't do that. If you haven't got time for the schedule, then don't do the movie.
Well, I don't know that for sure. It's just
but it's quite interesting. As I think about it, I think you might be right.
Yeah, I think so.
It's certainly not Our Kids Kramer versus Kramer.
It really isn't. No.
So I'm going to give it 5 out of 10.
Ooh, okay, 5 out of 10. Yeah.
Maybe 6 out of 10.
Okay, well, I was really excited about seeing Adam Driver sort of go to a new level, because I think Adam Driver runs the risk sometimes of being so cool for school that every part he plays, he's very good to look at, he's very cool, he's very slick. And I loved it when he lost his shit. And
I find it very difficult to look at.
Do you? Yeah. I liked it when he lost his shit, and I wished he'd lost his shit more. I found when Scarlett lost her shit, it felt too considered and too obvious. As I've said before, it was too polite, it was too buttoned up, it was strangely unemotional. And I say that as having gone through the emotional absolute, there are no highs, the emotional lows and lows of going through a divorce, essentially, and trying to get custody and trying to see your child. And you're right, I hadn't even thought about that. The role of the child seemed particularly unaffected by it. And even if that is the story of the directors, it's not very... Give him something. Have a scene where he just flips a bit or misbehaves or gives the wrong information. I mean, there was a very funny scene where the woman from the courts comes along to monitor Adam with his son. And again, even that was lacking in drama. You didn't feel there was any jeopardy.
I suppose the director would say that we see him go to his dad's when he doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to leave the party. He doesn't want to go trick-or-treating twice. He doesn't...
He's ticked the boxes.
I can see how it would be defended, what we're saying, but we didn't feel it. And the thing is, we are people that have, we feel a lot very quickly.
Yeah, and I was reduced to tears by something like The Joker, and this suffered from the same thing as The Irishman for me. It was too much, too long, too indulged, too considered, and too almost carefully mapped out. It needed to be a bit rougher at the edges. Anyway, that's how I felt. So I would probably give this a 4 out of 10. You gave it a 6.
Only because I felt bad after I said 5.
Go back to a 5.
5.
I'm giving it 4.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.